I want to talk about something somewhat contentious that comes up in our industry quite often. Frequently, we receive service requests where the customer knows what repair parts they need and then scoff when we suggest a full diagnosis. A waste of money, they say it is. I know what I need, and you're just trying to sell me extra services, is a quote we hear often. However, we'd beg to differ. Statistically, the evidence is overwhelming that the most cost-effective way to repair your machine is that it is professionally diagnosed first. We always knew this, but now we're happy to have the data to back it up. Stick around to find out why. Frequently, we're asked to perform repairs on machines we have not diagnosed ourselves. Naturally, we're happy to do this, but do caution against it as well. We get it. No one likes spending money needlessly. The perception is that the diagnosis is a waste of money. But is it really? What exactly are you getting from that diagnosis, and can that diagnosis save you money? We know it does because we've seen it time and time again. Now, as the data shows, there are some folks who do diagnose their machines correctly, but their low success rate would surprise you. However, we find that folks who ask this question generally fall into three categories. Number one, they had another company out to diagnose their machine. They didn't like that initial company, so they called us. Imagine disliking a company or technician so much that you did not want them to come back out for the repair, but still decide to trust their diagnosis. Paying for a second diagnosis isn't what you'd want to do, but is it wise to trust that tech you now feel was not trustworthy? Number two, they diagnosed it themselves and know exactly what is wrong with their unit. Cool, that's fine. We're happy to install that part you believe is faulty, but since we did not diagnose that machine, we're not responsible for the completeness of that diagnosis. Misdiagnosing a small $10 repair part is no big deal, but a $300 walking belt misdiagnosis is a costly gamble to take. Number three, my buddy took a look at it and, need I say more? Anecdotally, we've always known that about half the time these repairs do not go as hoped, but we wanted more info on this, so we've been tracking these jobs to see what data we could compile, and we'll show you what we found for 2023. Before we get into that though, any sort of stats are certainly subject to survivorship bias, and though we're certainly no statisticians, we have put some thought into this. Side note, if you're interested in learning more about survivorship bias, check out the link in the description below. Check out this chart which compiles our data from 2023. Keep in mind the 77 customers in this chart are all customers we were not able to convince that a diagnosis would be a wise investment. These 77 customers were so confident in their diagnosis that they insisted that the only parts their machines needed were the parts they requested. We do not track the number of customers we were able to convince to proceed with a diagnosis prior to having parts ordered, but would estimate it to be at least a couple hundred in 2023. So let's break this down. Out of the 77 undiagnosed parts installs we performed in 2023, 34 of them required essential parts beyond what the customer requested. For a more in-depth explanation, check out our repair parts classification explanations linked in the description below. But for now, an essential part is a part that must be replaced for this machine to work properly. Put another way, 44% of the undiagnosed parts installs we performed were not able to be used without more parts being replaced. To clarify, these additional parts are not nice to have, they were required to bring these machines to a safe working condition. When looking at machines diagnosed as needing recommended parts, which are parts that should be replaced, the percentage jumps to 64%. That's right, a whopping 64% of the undiagnosed parts installs we performed ended up needing additional parts installed for the machine to work properly. And once again, these are only customers that were certain that their diagnosis included all the parts their machine needed and could not be persuaded to have a professional diagnosis performed beforehand. What we don't like to see is our customers backed into a corner, especially when it could have been prevented. One of the most common parts installations we're requested to perform is a motor control board or MCB installation. The cost of that can be about $600 depending on the make and model of the machine. So you drop that money because you know the MCB needs to be replaced and don't want to pay for a diagnosis. Frequently, we come out and then discover your walking belt and deck are damaged, causing high friction, and both require replacement as well. Parts, shipping, labor, etc. could easily come to another $1,000, now bringing this repair total to $1,600 or more. Now our customer is stuck. They've already thrown $600 into it. Putting in another $1,000 in on top of that is a tough pill to swallow, and this all could have been prevented with a diagnosis. Can they use this new MCB until it also blows up? Sure, but the blown MCB is a symptom of the issue. The high belt and deck friction root cause still remains. The new MCB will not last, and $600 is a lot of money to put into a few weeks of hopefully extended treadmill use. However, if a full diagnosis was performed and the same customer was told it would be $1,600 to repair their machine right off the bat, their decision would have been much easier. Now this customer has been empowered to make the best decision for their situation with the information we've provided. A diagnosis is about 1/10 of the repair cost in this example, which is ultimately cheap insurance that you're not pouring good money into an old machine when you may be better off buying new. Will these numbers stay consistent? We look forward to tracking this annually in the future, and we'll certainly be making a follow-up video. Now, what is the advantage of that professional diagnosis? Not only does your machine benefit from a top-to-bottom inspection and tune-up, you also have a guarantee that the money you spend on the repair will fix your machine completely and entirely. Simply put, if our diagnosis doesn't resolve your issue, we cover the cost, ensuring you take on zero risk. For a complete list of diagnostic service steps, see the link in the description below. So there you have it. Statistically, the evidence is overwhelming that the most cost-effective way to repair your machine is if it is professionally diagnosed first. Still not convinced? Check out a reciprocal agreement with Fitness Factory. They'll give you a store credit toward the MSRP of a new machine purchase equal to your diagnosis charge. You can't lose. Link in the description below.